Somebody called me the S word today, and they said that I do not open up majority of the Pokemon products that I buy at Restocks. This is Socratic Rips, and let's do this. And before we get started, make sure to smash that like button, comment down below, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. We finally got over 2,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and we are moving on up on TikTok as well. So following, subscribing really helps. I appreciate you all. And today we're going to be opening up a Mega Moonlit EX tin. So we're going to find out what's in it, and we're going to open up the little tin version, right? I forgot what it's called. Something with it now. I don't remember. But hey, we're going to definitely check it out. But with that said, guys, somebody called me a scalper today. And they had the audacity to say that. And, for me, I take full ownership of what I do in the community. I am not one of those people that are going to sit there and lie in front. And they said, I do not open up, none of my products. And I kind of laughed. Even the guy at Best Buy laughed because they know who I am. And I was like, let me just tell you straight up. Socratic Rips. And luckily enough, I was wearing my Socratic Rips t-shirt. And I was like, yes, I have a t-shirt that says Socratic Rips on it. Kind of cool, but kind of cheesy. I get it. And I was like, hey, check out my YouTube channel. Then, come back and tell me if I don't open up any Pokemon products. Because, yeah. And even the guy at Best Buy, he was like, dude, he opens up a lot more than you think he does. But hey, right off the bat, this Mega Clefable is pretty dope. Like, I like the way it looks. It looks pretty dope. Even the box the tin looks pretty sweet. Let me put these down below. So what do you get in here? You get 2 Chaos Risings and 2 Perfect Orders, which explains why they still had these tins at Best Buy when they opened at 10 and they had them all the way at 4 o'clock. So I guess that really explains that, because there's no Ascended Heroes. Because we know if Ascended Heroes was in there, people would have actually snagged them up. But let's see what's in this little guy. I think these tins look fire in my opinion. But I don't know. Let me know down in the comments, like, what do you think about the tins, like the way they look? Do they look pretty good or not? Ooh, there's a TCG code in here. Bah, there you go. Take it. Obviously, and then you have a Mega Evolution and Perfect Order pack in here. So we got a total of 3 and 3. So we'll keep these on the side. But yeah, kind of back to what I was saying. Like, I find it so unique how people are so willing to call people scalpers. And which I don't know if they even understand what the word means. Like, for me, when I think of a scalper, like the traditional meaning is like you buy a product and you sell it for more than what it's worth, right? When I think about tickets and stuff, you sell unauthorized resell things. But, I think it's kind of morphed into the fact that, I look at it as, like, not that somebody just simply resells, but they're reselling at a way higher, price, right? And I know they're going to say, well, I'm selling it at market. But you're selling it way higher than MSRP. And so, and I get that. Like, some people are going to resell stuff. There's always going to be a market for that. And, but I think there's, when I go to card shows, there's people that I call ethical resellers. Or if you want to call them ethical scalpers. And then there's ethical, non-ethical resellers who are just trying to get the sheer amount of money, large amount of money as they can. And, I think that those are the people that, in my opinion, cause the problems. Because, there's many times I go to card shows and, even some of the people that they call big scalpers in the community, I know some of them that, would be deemed that. And I asked them, sure, like, hey, can you hook me up with a deal? And they will hook me up, So, I'm not trying to spread hate on anybody within, especially in the Madison community, because there are a lot of cool people that, part of their living is reselling cards. But I think that people overblow it because they're just mad that sometimes they can't get cards. And I get it, it's frustrating, and I get frustrated too. But I also understand, like, sometimes you just got to ask, like, hey, man, it's really hard for me to get cards. What's the best you can do on this? And someone will do it. And like, I'm not going to say any names, but there's a guy You know, he resells cards at card shows all the time. You know, he's always in line at Pokemon. But I've also seen him, you know, you can talk all the crap you want about him, but I've also seen where he's giving packs or even products to kids that, you know, where their mom came in line and they can't, you know, wait in line, and they're like, hey, I got some stuff here in my car, you know, and they'll sell it to them for normal price or less than it. So, you know, I think there's a big difference that we have to think about when it comes to scalpers, because not all scalpers are created equal, right? You know, like, you know, am I a scalper because I resell some of my cards? You know, I recently did a card show, and I resold, majority of the money I made was on selling, you know, single cards, and then buying some cards and reselling, right? And I don't think that's horrible, you know. And I gave some kids some good deals, some people good deals. We got a Gengar, let's go. You know, like on some of the sealed product that I was getting rid of my own. And so I wasn't a jerk, and, you know, I try to help people as much as I can within the community. And, you know, there's times people message me, and, like, I know them from line, and they're like, hey, man, I can't get nothing. Can you hook me up? I'm like, bet, I got you, dude. You know, but I'm not perfect. I will take full ownership of what I do. You know, I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to sit here and act like a saint, because I am not. I'm not perfect. You know, I've definitely sold things for, you know, market price, and, you know, do I do it, like, all the time? No. You know, do I sell things? Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be real with you guys. Running a YouTube channel it's expensive. You got to pay for the product. And, you know, yeah, I have a good job as a teacher. But at the end of the day, sometimes I have to sell a couple of things in my collection to actually buy. Yeah, we got the special red card. Let's go. You give your red card. With the World Cup coming up, let's go Team USA, Team Mexico, Team Germany, and Team England. Yes. Those are all parts of different cultures I am part of. If you didn't know, now you know. Yeah, I'm mixing them up. But yeah, back to what I was saying, like, you know, we're not perfect. And I think anybody who's going to sit here and act like they're perfect, you're not. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I don't get hard. Like, you know, a lot of the people that do, you know, try to make a living off this, I treat them with respect at the end of the day, because they're human beings, and, you know, we live in an economy that is really not the greatest, and so I understand. Now, but there are some scalpers out there that will wait forever in lines, and they will screw you over at the end of the day, and they will grab as many products as they can. They can shove things in the cart. You know, they will shove like everything in one cart. I have not truly experienced that here in Madison. You know, the people that people talk crap about, they've been good to me, so I'm not going to hate on them at all. But I've also been in situations where people that were in front of me that, you know, they knew me, and there was like X amount of ETBs, and they took them all. And it was like, you know, 5 or 7 of them, and actually, no, it was 9, and they took all 9. You know, that really sucked, right? If you're wondering, all I got from that tin so far was a red card. I ain't gonna lie, I messed with this card. But, like, for me, I take ownership of who I am and what I do. And I just wonder about you. Do you take ownership of who you are and own it? You know, part of me, you know, growing up, and, you know, my dad taught me, and, you know, I'm going to say it right now, happy birthday, Dad. You know, you getting old, but you taught me a valuable lesson. It's like, you are who you are, and you own it. And if people don't like you for it, you can't always please everybody. And so, yeah, I have a YouTube channel, and guess what? People are going to say I'm ruining the hobby, and they're right to some degree. You know, by showing this, am I overhyping the cards? Of course I am, right? And I think that's a hard pill to swallow for people, to actually own what they do in the community. You know, I do think I have a really good reputation in the community. And before you start saying, oh, well, how do you know? You know, my first time selling at a card show, ooh, I'll definitely take the double. Let's go. Yes, I like Gengar, as you can tell, like many people. You know, I was at a card show, and the table next to me, before they opened, there was a couple people walking around, and somebody stole over $3,000 worth of his cards, like a stack. And you know what? The guy, he knew me from the community, and he knew that I would have never done that to him. So he did not even think that I would do that. But you know what I did? I told him straight up, because cops were eventually called, And I said, hey, for your peace of mind, I want you to go through my stuff. Everything. I will empty my pockets. You can go through my bin. And he's like, no. Like, no, dude, I really insist because I don't want you coming back later on thinking I did it or anything like that. But to know that he didn't even think that way of me was awesome, right? And you got to keep that reputation. And part of how I keep my reputation in the community is I hold people accountable and I hold myself accountable. I'm never going to shirk responsibility of who I am, nor am I going to let people in the community think they're going to get away with bad behavior. Just the other day, I was at a Target restock and I showed up right before work and I'm going to open up a few more packs, guys. Let's see what we got here. Some Chaos Rising. Yeah, let's do 2 Chaos Rising. And I was like, I was able to get, I was like 24th in line and I was able to get a prismatic ETB, which hell yeah. And these 2 guys tried to circle around, and the manager clearly said 1 per person, and I called them out on it. And 3 dudes, and they got mad, and they were staring at me, and apparently now they want to fight me. And you know what? I wish they would, But, you got to call out bad behaviors, and you know what? And if I were to do that, I want somebody to call me out. And that's why I surround myself with friends who are going to call me out, and so make sure I don't go down that bad path. But let me know down in the comments, straight up, do you think that there needs to be more personal accountability within the Pokemon TCG? Like right now, I was really vulnerable with you guys. I told you, I laid it down right now, like who I am as an individual. I'm a kind person. I'm not a nice person, and I'm always going to try my best to do the right thing. And you're not going to see me at a restock grabbing every product, shoving it in my cart. You're more likely to see me grab a bunch of products and pass it out one by one to make sure everybody gets something. You also see that I'm compassionate towards the people that some of y'all hate, some of these hardcore scalpers, right? I know a lot of them. And I like them as human beings, right? I don't always have to agree with what they do. They treat me with respect. I treat them with respect. And some people may not like that. And I'm okay if you don't like that. I'm going to treat people with kindness and I'm going to respect people. But man, those tins did not treat me with respect. Sheesh, I'm getting wrecked here. Let me open one more. I want to open one more pack. Let's see, what do we got here? I don't want to open that. You know what? Let's open up the... Maybe I'll get lucky with a sleeve pack, right? Because I'm getting wrecked. But let me know down in the comments. Does there need to be more self-accountability? People checking in their own greed, things of that nature? Because I think it's easy for people to get mad instead of addressing who they are as individuals. It's easy for people to break off friendships because people see who they are. I think it's easy for people to criticize and say, when somebody figures out, like, hey, you're kind of doing scumbag behaviors. But me, I'm always going to hold myself accountable. And if people don't like that, so be it. I'm always going to call myself out. I'm always going to surround myself with people that will call me out. Dude, I feel like I just got this Emma card. Come on, Emma. And I have a weird question, but I'll ask it. Damn, I'm getting wrecked. But you know what that said, guys? Just kind of summarize what I'm saying. Like, at the end of the day, I think we got to hold up a red card to ourselves. And we have to analyze who we are as individuals and call each other out in a respectful manner and call ourselves out. And I think it's easy to start pointing fingers. And yes, a lot of us, we are at fault within this community. And I'm going to do a more in-depth video of the issues within the Pokemon community that I've seen because, I was out of the Pokemon community for years. And I came back in, randomly, not even because of prismatic evolutions like some people. My cousin got me hyped up on Pokemon again because I was collecting football again because I actually had the money to do it, And I started back up right when Journey Together was coming out. And so I have a weird, unique take on it. But with that said, guys, let me know down in the comments. What are your thoughts? You know, I know I dumped off a lot of things. I held myself accountable. You know, what are your thoughts on people who, you know, resell products, right? But they're not what you would deem as hardcore scalpers. You know, what are your thoughts on these hardcore scalpers and how do they behave? And you know, before you start commenting all reckless, I want you to ask yourself and and understand that these people are humans first, not their behaviors first. And I think showing people a little bit of empathy is going to go a long way. And I know some people don't like that word, but you know what? I'm a very compassionate individual, and I think everybody deserves, you know, for us to look beyond sometimes their actions and to actually have good dialogue with them. But with that said, guys, make sure to like, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. You know, we're past 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're moving up on TikTok. You know, we're making some moves in this community. You know, next step, I'm shooting to get to 3,000, you know, subscribers on YouTube, and I want to get to 2,000 followers on TikTok. And the only way that we can do that if we spread the word, you know, because I really appreciate you all. And I know it's not just me, it's you all that are helping building this community. So please comment, like, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. This is Socratic Rips. And the cards I ripped today, definitely get not just a red card, a special red card. Peace.